In the 1980s, neoliberalism was sweeping through the hallways of political power. In America and the United Kingdom, Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher were changing the role of government in people's lives. By privatizing institutions that were typically run by the state. Education, which was historically viewed as a public good, was the next industry under consideration for the cut. This is the philosophy of neoliberalism, Part 2, Higher Education. Neoliberal thinkers, including Milton Friedman, had always believed that higher education should not be funded by the government at all. Universities typically benefited the individual, Friedman believed, and so the individual should have to pay to go to them. Furthermore, university graduates came from or would go on to become the elite of society. Why should the tax dollars of everyday people go to funding their education? Successive governments put this view into practice, implementing a prolonged series of funding cuts to universities throughout the 1980s and 90s. In the UK and US, universities began to rely on ever-increasing payments directly from students in the form of student debt. The scale and nature of the debt varied by country. In America, students famously graduated with tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt, which would take years, if not decades, to pay back.
Didn't you just pay off your loans in 2004?
Yeah, basically the year I was elected to Senate, the year before I became a U.S. Senator, was when we finished paying off all of our loans. Combined, Michelle and my bill was higher than our mortgage. And right now, student debt is actually higher than credit card debt.
There are 40 million people currently with student debt.
Yeah.
In the new free market system, universities had an incentive to enroll ever more students to get more student customers who would pay an ever-increasing amount of student debt. The more debt, the greater the profit. From the 1990s onwards, the number of university students skyrocketed, as did the number of universities. Everyone wanted to cash in on the new business opportunity and to secure those lucrative student loans. Students responded by becoming more discerning about where they should spend their money. If they were going to incur so much student debt, then they felt like they should be able to get their money's worth. In other words, a return on investment. Soon, students changed from being pursuers of knowledge to being customers who wanted the best product or service in the market. Universities changed from being providers of knowledge to businesses serving the student customer. This is exactly what the neoliberal thinkers predicted, and the outcome they desired.
In America, there is one part of education where the market has had extensive scope. That's higher education. These students attend Dartmouth College, a private school founded in 1769.
Most of them get the money from their parents, but some are on scholarships provided either by Dartmouth or by outside sources. Still others take out loans to pay the costs of schooling, loans which they will have to pay back years later. The college is selling schooling. The students are buying schooling. And as in most such markets, both sides have a strong incentive to serve one another.
Universities, wanting to get a greater number of students, began doing what businesses do best, differentiating themselves from one another. They did so by giving students more information in the form of hard data from which they could decide which university to attend. A long list of data points was created, including employment statistics, graduate attributes, and most crucially of all, global university rankings. But how did the rankings come into existence? In 2003, a businessman, Richard Lambert, wrote a report for the UK Treasury, reviewing the collaboration between universities and private companies. He found that more could be done to get university professors to commercialize their research and to work with businesses to generate profit. Encouraging academics and business people to spend more time together should be a high priority, he wrote. Lambert recommended the creation of a university ranking system for the UK. Universities would be ranked in accordance with their research, teaching quality, and most crucially, industry collaborations. After the report was published, it grew from a UK project to a global one. The result was the QS World University Rankings, and a spin-off, the Times Higher Education World University Rankings. Global ranking systems could be used by students to determine which universities would provide the best return on investment. Neoliberal policies went beyond influencing students, however, to influencing their professors. Without proper government funding for their research, professors had to reach out to private companies to create partnerships. At the same time, professors were held responsible for improving the newly created university global rankings. A new mantra, publish or perish, became the law of the land, where professors were judged not on the quality of their research projects, but the amount of articles they published in reputable journals. This affected, inevitably, what professors chose to research and disincentivized less pragmatic, more academic research topics, or blue sky projects. It also disincentivized the time they spent on each individual student. By the late 2000s, the university system worldwide had transitioned from a place of knowledge acquisition and learning into a business model. Instead of giving students knowledge, it became important to give them quantifiable skills. These could then be sold on to employers, helping to boost graduate employment numbers and thereby attract more fee-paying students. And so a feedback loop was created, which began to fulfill its own prophecy. Various student surveys from law schools, for example, found that students began to internalize neoliberal values. They began to care more about their resume, the skills they learned in class, and choose elective classes that reflected the desire of employers rather than their own values. Universities, responding to student demands, began to offer more skills-focused courses. Employers, placing pressure on universities, began to push for even more of a skills focus in order to shift the cost of training away from their own bottom line. Neoliberal education introduced the free market into every decision and every outcome of the education process, while the ideals of the institution as a holistic center of education were placed into jeopardy. This video was sponsored by the Cambridge Centre for International Research. The centre aims to make academic knowledge more accessible to the general public, which is something I strongly believe in. Thanks for watching my videos. Feel free to like and subscribe to the channel and comment below to share your thoughts on neoliberalism.